Liverpool's £120 million offer to Newcastle. United leading the race for Benjamin Sesko. We've got a really big take on the Eze to Arsenal move. I really can't wait to get your opinions and your views on this. Plus, a big here we go to bring you as well live this morning on the Done Deal Show. We're talking Guehi, we're talking Xavi to Chelsea, but more importantly, we're taking your calls. Hit the like button right now, okay? Make sure that you are subscribing. Make sure that bell notification button is turned on as well. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you're all well. Hope you're all good. It's closing in 2 weeks to the start of the Premier League season. I cannot wait. I love transfers. I love the thrill of the chase of them. But I can't lie to you. I am so excited about the start of the Premier League season. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in, whatever you come directly from notifications, whether you're in the browser, whether you're here from the United stand, welcome. We're going to be taking your calls later in the show as well. We're talking Alexander Isak, we're talking Sesko, we're talking Eze, we're talking Xavi, we're talking Marc Guehi as well. Some big updates, some big stories on that. But before we go into any of those stories, we have a big here we go. Palhinha to Tottenham, here we go. This update from Fabrizio Romano actually came in the middle of the night for us here in the UK. And I have to say, a loan that includes a €30 million buy option, I personally think this is a fantastic piece of business for Tottenham Hotspur. He's a player that, honestly, I wanted at Manchester United when he was at Everton. Yes, I know he's seen as a sort of box crusher. Sorry, a ball winner, a midfield destroyer, someone that kind of breaks up the play. That's sort of what he is looked at and seen as, and kind of that's all people really view him as. But I also think he's a pretty decent technician as well. I think he's a very capable football player, and I believe this is a brilliant piece of business for Spurs indeed. And what we have just done, as you can see, we've updated the video printer with his details. In fact, let's just add the pound note there into his valuations. Let me submit that so you can see it. That's 4 pieces of business now for Tottenham this summer. They did look very strong defensively yesterday against Arsenal, and Palhinha is only going to make them harder to beat. It's a shame for him it didn't work out at Bayern Munich, but overall, I really do think that this is a top piece of business. Who did I say? Did I not say Fulham? Yeah, I meant Fulham. Whoever I said, forget it. You know I meant Fulham. Thank you. I don't know why I said Everton. Maybe I was reading about Everton a little bit earlier. But yes, I definitely meant Fulham. I loved him when he was there. He makes it so hard to bypass a midfield. He protects a back line so brilliantly. And I also think he's pretty good on the ball. I'm not saying he's Xavi. I'm not saying he's Paul Scholes. I'm not saying he's Michael Carrick. I'm not saying he's Busquets. Okay? No one's making that claim. Don't cry. But overall, I think this is a really solid piece of business by Tottenham Hotspur. I really do. So they should be happy with this. Yes, a loan, but it's the element of that buy option as well. They've done it with Tell. Let's see how he turns out for them. I'm still not fully convinced by him in the Premier League so far. Really liked him in Germany. Really liked the idea of United signing him. So far in the Premier League, it's not quite worked. But this is a new dawn for Tottenham. This is a new manager. They're actually going to be bringing in a system which I think works the best for them as a football club. It's that mixture of attacking football with pragmatism, with a sort of dogged approach at the right times. And you saw that yesterday against Arsenal. High line in the first half, which Arsenal were trying to exploit, took the lead, and then very hard to break down, solid low block, very good banks of 4 with very little space in between. And I just think that Palhinha will be an amazing addition to that way of playing. So, yeah, well done to Tottenham. A very, very big here we go in relation to that. So, yeah, fantastic indeed. I want to say good morning to a few of you watching. Morning to Twisted Bubba, morning Mama, morning Lou, morning Rob, always united. I understand morning to the people that have said morning to me. So no disrespect. Morning to Rice Rolls, morning to Jack, Delroy, morning to Simon. Who else we got in here? This comment here says, from Hatim says, why did Bayern sign him if they barely played? Well, because this happens in football. This happens in life. I employed someone once because I really wanted them to do a certain job for me. And they came in, and 3 months after I employed them, I realized I didn't really need them to do that job. It was making no impact on the business. It wasn't saving us or making us money. And I needed people in other areas, but I didn't have the budget. So I sat the gentleman down and said, look, I just don't need your role anymore. And he went, yeah, I don't really feel like I'm needed here. Not in a personal way. Nobody was disrespectful to him. We all got on great. And he said, what do you want to do? And I'm not about making people redundant where I can help it. So I just said, look, just keep working here and start looking for another job. He went, I already have, which we both laughed at because we were both on the same wavelength. And he stayed on for about 6 weeks. He found a new job and he said, can I go and start now? They want me. And I let him go straight away. That's life. That also happens in football. And these things happen. And he went there. It didn't quite work for what they needed. But I think that doesn't make you a bad player because you didn't work at a particular club in a particular league in a certain system. I think the way Tottenham are going to play, I think he's going to be and will be a massive, massive hit indeed. He really is. Morning to Cal the Gooner. Morning to Adam. Morning, Emmanuel. Morning, Damn You. Morning to Chris. Morning, Jack. Hope you're all good. Billy here said, Terry firing people. Yeah, I have fired people. I've fired people for breaking rules. I've fired people for being bad at their jobs. I've moved people on that I didn't need in the business anymore. The same as lots of stuff. And by the way, this is not personally employed by me. I'm talking about in the day in the bank. Other people left for better jobs, promotions. People left to have career changes. People left for career breaks. People left to start families. People emigrated. It's the nature of life. It's business. It is never personal. And not when you're a professional, as I am. So, yes, great bit of business for Tottenham. Up next on the show, I want to talk about the situation with Alexander Isak. A big update came out last night. Let's take a look at this. This here from Dave OC Cop is that Liverpool are ready to pay Newcastle up to 60 million up front for Alexander Isak. A further 60 million would follow the next year. The add-ons bring the total fee to around 140 million, with 120 million guaranteed. This, according to a very reliable Liverpool-based source, is the offer that Liverpool are willing to make official. So again, it isn't an official bid, but that's because official bids by Liverpool rarely go in until they have things tied down. But it's reported that Liverpool are willing to go in with a 140 million pound offer, 120 million pound guaranteed for the player. What's your initial thoughts on this? I want to throw this out to you, the viewers, because as I always say, your opinions matter to me more than anybody else's. But I really do want to get your opinions on this. Just your first instant gut reaction. Type it. Type your first instant gut reaction to this news. Let me know what you think. I'm going to look at your comments before I give you my opinion. I want to know what you guys have got to say. British record fee, yes. Liver wrestler says amazing. He's that good, but not worth 140. Fair. I get where you're coming from. I disagree, but I get where you're coming from. What else are we seeing here? What else are we seeing comment-wise? I want to get your opinions. I'm going to see if somebody hits the money. 60 million up front, then another 60. Yeah, this is happening. I agree with you on that. I think that is maybe the most sensible comment you've ever made, Jamie. Liverpool playing like a big boy. They certainly are. Newcastle will be able to do good business. Absolutely. So let me break this down how I see it. I know Newcastle fans keep saying 150, 160, 170, 200 million. That's what you got to pay. Make it the biggest fee ever. This potential offer, I mean, they may not even have to pay the add-ons. They may get him for 120 flat, genuinely, with an offer like this. And I'll tell you why. Yes, football clubs get to I love that from Twisted Bubba. Liverpool are famous for getting amazing deals and payment terms. This is still a good deal, but in the reverse way to how they often do it. So do you remember Ben Jacobs? He's also on today, by the way, 6:30 on the Football Terrace. Do you remember Ben Jacobs spoke about how there is this view that if United would decided to pay Brentford over 2 years, they may have got a lower fee. If they'd done it over 3 years, it may have been around the 60 million mark. Could have got him for around 55 million if we paid it over a 2-year period. But the reason the base was 65 is because United wanted it because of our own financial cash flow issues to pay it over 4 years. I think there's an element here that I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant, Winter Surfer. I think there's an element here of Liverpool looking at this and saying, look, we know you want this massive fee. We don't want to pay 150, 160, 170. How about 120 with some fairly difficult add-ons, but we pay you 60 million cash this year and we pay you 60 million cash next year. This is huge. And Sean says it, 30 million upfront is huge in a transfer. The reason that Arsenal haven't yet executed an official bid to Crystal Palace is because Palace want 30 million pounds up front. And most clubs, no matter how big, no matter how rich, rarely like to pay that amount of money up front for a transfer. They like getting it between sort of 10, 15, maybe 20 million pound year one. They like to spread those costs. That is what clubs like to do. This may be an attempt from Liverpool, though, to say, look, we've got surplus cash because we didn't spend last year. So they will have cash reserves in the business. They will have that cash reserve there because they didn't spend anything last year. So there is likely to be a large amount of cash, not 120 million, but you could imagine there's a good 50, 60, 70 million sitting around. Now, they'll probably still borrow the money from a bank because what you can earn in interest on 60 million at this, I mean, I haven't worked in the banking system now for 7 years, but I would still hazard a guess that listen, I could go back to work for 2 days. I can get them better interest on that 60 million in some type of bond compared, it'd be cheaper than borrowing 60 million pound from me. So sorry, the interest rate will be higher on the savings on the bond than it would be on the lending. So they'll still probably borrow the money and not use their own cash, but that's a technical banking accounting issue. It's also, by the way, people don't realize this, it's tax efficient to borrow money. Give you a little bit of advice. Generally speaking, say your friend says, look, I'm starting a business. Do you want to get involved? I need £25,000 and you're considering it. If you've got £25,000 in cash, don't give him your 25,000 in cash. Take a loan. The interest you pay on that loan is tax deductible because you're investing into a business. So the interest rate's free. So you've still got to pay the loan back, but you're just paying the capital. That way you're not risking your own cash. With the income from the new business, you're covering the loan. Essentially, you're not spending any of your own money ever, unless it's a bad business idea and it flops. The business is successful and you're getting money out of it. It's going to pay for itself. So yeah, borrow the money, never spend your own. But that's another conversation for another day. We'll talk about that another time. So I looked at this offer that came in, and the first thing I thought about was this really could work. From a financial standpoint, getting a large amount of cash up front, this is massive to Newcastle. It's massive. Having those cash reserves is huge for them. A club that's only turning over 300 to 400 million a year. They'd get to put 120 million of income into the business trading accounts, but they'd have an injection of 60 million pound cash instantly, straight away. And that's cash they can use to buy players. It gives them great negotiating power when it comes to Seskos or Jacksons or whatever other players it is that they are looking for. They want Marc Guehi, a player that we're going to move on to. Well, we move on to it now. There's a report today that came out that states that Liverpool remain keen on landing Marc Guehi from Crystal Palace, but do not agree with the 40 million valuation. given he is available for nothing next summer. Now, this is where which I think is a very fair view from Liverpool. They don't like to overpay. They don't like to overpay, and they don't like to pay above what they think the valuation of a player is. That being said, with a £60 million injection of cash, Newcastle may turn around and say, well, look, we want to sign someone that's top class. Yes. And this is where the value of a player can change. Newcastle have missed out on lots of top targets. We know how good Guehi is. We know what a solid player he is. We know the level that this man has got the capabilities of getting to. So it stands to reason that Newcastle might go in and say, look, how about, this is where you can get the price of a player down with instant cash. How about 30 million? How about 25 million? But we'll pay you it today. We won't stagger it over 4 or 5 years, Palace. We'll give you that money today. That gives you 25, 30 million where you can go out and buy someone else and also behave in that way. One of the reasons why Man City got a lot of players between kind of 2015 and 2020 for like that 50, 60 million mark, and why even sometimes worse players or less talented players is probably a better phrase, were going for 70s and 80s, is because City were very cash rich at the time and could say, we'll do 50 mil, but you get all the money up front. No installments. It's not spread over 4, 5, 6 years. You get the money all up front. And that made Manchester City, let me turn my fan on in my office. The plug ain't on, it's not going to work. That made Man City formidable in that type of negotiations. So I think this is something that Newcastle should consider. And I think it's something Newcastle should look at seriously and seriously consider, and I think about doing. The player doesn't want to be there anymore. We'll get back to the football side of things now. The player doesn't want to be he doesn't want to be, sorry, I'm just putting a timestamp in here. He doesn't want to be at Liverpool anymore. We all know this. And there's no disrespect in that at all. He doesn't want to be at Newcastle anymore. He wants to become a Liverpool player. We all know this. We don't need to, he faked an injury, missed pre-season. He's training in another country. I've seen the signs by Newcastle fans calling him a rat. They've turned on him. It's the relationship's dead. There is no way back. There is absolutely no way back for Alexander Isak. There is literally, in my opinion, there is absolutely nothing he can do to rectify this situation. I think it's finished, personally. Although football fans are fickle, if he comes in and scores the winning goal against Liverpool in the second game of the season, you'll probably find a lot of Newcastle fans cheering his name. But my personal thought and my personal belief is that situation is done, dusted, dead, and buried. You may see it differently, and we'll go to the comment section in a minute to see what you think in relation to that. But I think it's one that's over. I personally think it's one that's done. I personally think it's one that it's finished now. So Newcastle have to seriously consider this offer. That amount of cash up front, if Dave O'Cop is right, if Dave has got this information spot on, and he does, he's very well respected. You look at every tweet, every post, very credible in the Liverpool space, very credible in Merseyside. If this offer is true, then I think Newcastle have got to take it. And Mama Flossie, who's a big Newcastle fan, agrees. And I'm glad. We know that Mama Flossie's intelligent. That's why she understands it. It's the cash. That cash will then help you guys. Even with the Leipzig deal, and we'll get onto that in just a few moments. Well, we can kind of merge into that now and come back to it, because that's the point of these shows. We are going to take your calls, by the way, and I'm going to put the link into the description right now so I can pin that so you guys can phone in. We're going to start taking calls in a little bit on the show. I'm not as rushed this morning. Last few days I've had like other shows to do straight after this show, so I've been in this situation where I've had to I've got to go, guys. I can't take any more calls, so we're a little bit less push for time today. But you also notice when you see this update that's come out this morning. Now this is about Benjamin Sesko to Manchester United, and this makes me excited because I like Benjamin Sesko. I think he's a fantastic player, and it reads like an agreement is close. So Ben Jacobs here says that Manchester United are the front runners for Benjamin Sesko after positive talks this week. Sesko is keen to join even without European football. Newcastle fear Sesko is going to Old Trafford despite remaining in talks. But this is where And again, we'll come back to the Man United side of this story in a few moments. We'll come back to that. But the deal is still complicated by Leipzig's asking price, as Arsenal found out earlier this window. 75 million plus add-ons quoted to the clubs. Now, we know United have financial problems. This is where Newcastle. And look, if the player says Newcastle, no, I only want Man United, I'll wait till deadline day. And if it doesn't happen, I'll wait till January. Newcastle will pull away at that point. They won't embarrass themselves by hanging around. But if there is this notion, and we're going to find out according to Fabrizio in the next couple of days, if there is this sort of notion that he's open to both and it's about who gets the deal done first, which could still be the outcome of this, that's where the circumstance changes massively. That's where Newcastle, with this £60 million cash from Liverpool up front, pays dividends. They might even be able to get the deal lower than Man United can with Leipzig by saying, look, we know that you want 75 million euro base, which is about 65 million pounds. How about we do 55 million base, but we'll pay you 35, 40 million of it cash up front. It changes the complexity of the deal. Leipzig may look at that and say, we could do with the cash. It depends on Leipzig's situation. They may look at it and say, we could really do with the cash at the moment. That's a great deal. And then, unless Man United can match it, which we can't, by the way, right now we can't, it may create a situation. So, look, Man United are the front runners for Sesko. I believe that. I know Ben Jacobs is telling the truth with that. But we don't know whether he's going to do the prioritize Man United, reject everybody else, or whether he's open to the Newcastle deal and it's about who strikes the right price when it comes to RB Leipzig. So, look, it's a very, very interesting thing. It's a very, very interesting circumstance indeed. And the Isak situation is intriguing. Now, what's really interesting about the Isak situation is as well that there are these rumors that keep surfacing that if Sesko goes to United, it will stop Isak going to Liverpool. I don't personally believe that at all. I don't personally believe that at all. All it means is Newcastle will pivot to another striker. What I do think is right is that I don't think Newcastle will sell Isak until they get a new number 9. But there's still Ollie Watkins. There is still Jackson. There's another striker's name who I now forget. Ollie Watkins. So you got Watkins, Jackson. There's Mateta. That was the one I was looking for, Mateta. There are multiple options out there that Newcastle can pivot to. That Newcastle, they can go back in for Wissa, who I still think will go. He's still telling Brentford he wants out and he wants to leave. So I look at these scenarios and I look at these situations, and there's a little bit of overlap and there's a little bit of, well, what happens if this, if Sesko goes first? I think it slows down the Isak to Liverpool move. Do I think it stops it? No, not for me. And I say that with the utmost respect to Newcastle United. But like I said earlier, I think they're in a very untenable situation. And let's see what plays out. I mean, there are these big reports that Newcastle told him he would be able to go. And like they've sort of gone back on it a little bit. And we've seen these fights this summer. We've seen it with Gyökeres. We've seen it to a certain degree with Sporting Lisbon. There's been some rumors there that the camp are frustrated with Sesko that, they're asking for too much money. We've seen these scenarios kind of rear their heads a little bit this year. And a lot of that is because players are refusing to sign new deals. The reason they're refusing to sign new deals is because they keep getting priced out of dream moves. And I've been saying for a few years that we were gonna get to this point in football. We were going to get to this point where the Guehis of this world are not signing new deals at the age that he is at Crystal Palace. They want 40 million now for him. If he had 3 years left on his contract, they'd be asking for 70 or 80. They'd price him out of a move. And I don't mean it disrespectfully to Palace or to Newcastle or these clubs. Tottenham are one of them potentially. Although they're a Champions League team this year, your better players at this point in time are more attracted to Real Madrid, Liverpool, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, PSG than they are your clubs. And that isn't football players don't come to your club. You might get a handful of academy players or lifelong fans who sign for your club and they are just Twitter-pated. They're Twitter-pated. They're so overcome with love for your club, they'd never leave. But that isn't how most professional football players think. This is a job. You don't start a job at Dunkin' Donuts. You don't start a job at a law firm. You don't start working for a Row network. Typically speaking, you don't fall in love with that organization in the same way you do your beautiful wife, the same way you do with your children when they're born. It is a different type of, you might love it. I loved working in the banking industry, but it is a completely different perception. Now, for football fans, this is where the confusion for all of us comes in, because we love our clubs in that way. I don't love my club as much as I love my kids, right? I'm not gonna deny that, or my partner, but I love my football club. I absolutely love them, which is why my view is to pull my money away from the club. I see it as tough love. The same as this morning when my children were being naughty. Because it's gone, okay, kids, keep running around like crazy till one of you gets hurt. No, separated. They were nice to each other, but they were going crazy. So I put them both in separate rooms, got them to sit down and do some drawing. Just calm down a little bit. Why? Because I could see them running and smacking heads together. Then that would have meant I had to go to hospital, which means I couldn't have streamed. That's my job. You know, it stops me putting food on the table. So there was a sensible reason to do it, but I also didn't want to see my children get hurt. However, I had to be, they cried a little bit because they were enjoying the game, but I could handle them crying. I could handle them crying because I knew what I was doing was making them safer and was mitigating the risk of them hurting themselves. So their tears didn't make me go, oh, see, this is what I'm not going to say. No, I'm not going to say that because some parents will get upset with me. My love for my children, how I love my children, is those tears are a good thing at that moment. They're upset because they've been stopped doing something, but I know that I'm stopping them from getting hurt. But football players don't think about their football clubs in that way. It is transactional only. Transactional only. I come here, you pay me X, we try and win. When a better offer comes along, most want to go. And I think football fans have to realize that. I mean, we all know that as well, because when we can get something better, we trade up quick, right? We trade up quick, very quickly, very, very quickly indeed. Every single one of us is like that. We're all like it. We're all like it. But there we go. I just got some more of your comments before we start taking your calls this morning. Cynical Jim with a great name says pure waffle. 100% facts, bruv. Saying it's pure waffle without any explanation. It's not my fault that you let your kids dominate you, mate. Don't let your kids dominate you. That's what I'm going to say. Don't let them do things that are dangerous for them just because they'll cry and you can't handle it. Toughen up a little bit, maybe. Seems like Sesko doesn't really have a hold of his own career. He seems happy with his family and agent to decide what he wants. I think he'll do well in the Premier League, but needs the right environment. I don't necessarily agree with that, Delroy. I don't necessarily agree that he is like, how do I say this in the right way? I don't necessarily agree that they're in control. They're just speaking on his behalf. You know, often when people go, that player needs a new agent, this is what I don't think people understand about most agents. And I've spoke to agents, I've met agents, I've had drinks and dinners with agents. Yes, they're quite ruthless in what they do, but it's a lot easier to speak. Have you ever noticed it's a lot easier to speak on somebody else's behalf? Sometimes it can be quite hard sitting in a room. And when I used to go for job interviews myself, when you get to the salary stage, it is, especially when you're younger, it's like, oh, how do I ask for that amount of money? It's hard. Then I started, as you get a bit more experience, you start getting, I had a few headhunters come for me and they do your negotiations for you. And it's a lot easier to tell a headhunter, I want X minimum. If I don't get X minimum, I'm not taking the job. Again, if you're a recruiter, you'll know this. It's so much easier for you to tell the employer, listen, they're just not coming unless it's X amount a year. That middleman doesn't mean that the recruiter's controlling my life. They're acting on my behalf. Mino Raiola didn't go around Europe looking for a new club behind Paul Pogba's back. He instructed that shit, or at least said, put the feelers out there and see what else is going on. Trust me. Or said, oh, I really hate it here, man. Maybe I wish I could find a new club. And then the agent goes, well, I'm going to go and do some legwork for you. And then comes back with a little presentation. These clubs they're not controlling them. They're acting on their behalf. Trust me, agents do exactly. I know for a fact. I remember when I worked in PB, we'd have these relationships with agents, and the NBA had a game in London. I don't remember who played in it now. And we had about 50 really good tickets. every football agent in the country, ones that had ignored our calls for months on the phone, all the big agents, how many tickets can you get me? How many tickets can you get me? And of course, we're like, well, we need to start a dialogue here because we wanted their players to come bank with us, right? So, and I remember asking one guy, I won't name him, so why are you guys so desperate for these tickets? He went, well, I've got 3 clients who are looking for massive moves and massive pay increases from their clubs, huge commission for me. But most agents don't have contracts with players. They can just leave like this. So it's like, if I can do anything possible to keep them on my side, I will. So I always find it interesting that football fans think that the agents lead the players, where a lot of the time, in my experience, it was the players leading and controlling their agents and just getting them to do their bidding, because the agents were desperate to keep hold of them. Desperate. Like, I couldn't believe it, because these agents, when you were with them alone, like in meetings, they were cool, calm, collected, suave, articulate, strong, demanding. When it comes to needing something so they could give it to one of their players, so their player could turn up and look like a big man, they were like, it was like your kids begging for ice cream. And it used to make me, it was like the difference and the contrast in behavior was huge. So, yeah, I don't believe in that type of thing. And maybe that's because of my personal experiences. What are your thoughts on Manchester United for this season? It's a great comment. Let's take a look at this Fabrizio Romano video, and then we're going to talk about it. Let's take a little listen.
And then on Benjamin Sesko, guys, just to add to the past video I did, Manchester United, in the recent hours, today, with their directors, made direct contact with Red Bull Leipzig to inform them that they are prepared to bid for Benjamin Sesko. So they want to bid for Benjamin Sesko, but they will only do it if they have encouragement from the player about, okay, I want to join you. Now it's on Sesko to decide. Newcastle are ready to pay, Man United are ready to bid. Newcastle are ready to match whatever is needed with Leipzig and with the player. Man United are ready to bid and to start a negotiation with Leipzig, which is different. But this move from Man United is also part of the strategy to show also to the player that they are serious, that they are ready to make business for Benjamin Sesko, also on club side. And they can really do it. So Man United are showing to the player how ready they are by contacting Leipzig and telling them, okay, if the player wants to come, we are ready to bid. So now the story enters into important stages. It's going to be on Sesko to decide what he wants to do, Newcastle or Manchester United. But for sure, we enter into the days of the discussion between Sesko, his agent, and his family.
So look, a very, very interesting update there from him. Goes into really good detail. What do I think of Man United for this season? Give me Benjamin Sesko. I think we score 30 minimum, but I'm going to push the team and say I want to see 40 more goals in the league. Those 40 more goals, I think, give us a minimum of 7 to 8 more wins. But again, I want to push the team to aim for 10 to 12 more wins. I want to really push them hard, 1 game a week as an example. I think those deals help us do that. Last season, a lack of goals was our biggest problem. Yes, we need a better goalkeeper. Yes, we need to improve that midfield. But the lack of goals, I look back so many games last season. And we did this exercise on the Top 6 show last night. You could probably only find 1 win from last year where we got bowed out late. You could argue 2 with the Fulham game, but it wasn't like Fulham were pinning us back. Most of our wins we got last year, we genuinely were the better team and deserved to win. We had very few games where we were terrible. Our opponents missed a million chances, and then we nicked a weird late goal. The Southampton game's maybe only one of them. There were so many games last season where Manchester United were the better team, had all the opening chances, 3 or 4 gilt-edged chances, didn't take them, and went on to lose narrowly. 1-0, 2-1, or sometimes 2-0 because we concede and concede again late. I think with the front line we're building, Man United will have a exceedingly good chance of improving their wins. As I say, minimum 7 to 8. I want to push for 10 to 12. 12 would be utopia for this season. For this season in isolation, it would be utopia. It would be a massive growth, because if you were to add 36 points onto us last season, I think we may have even come second. So that would be crazy. But that being said, I don't think that amount of points will get you second this year, because I think that Liverpool, Arsenal, City and Chelsea will all get more points than last season. So it's not an exact science, but that's what I kind of want us to aim for. That is how I would break it down if I was internal with Man United and say, look, let's aim for 10 additional wins. That's all we've got to look for is 10 additional wins, and set up a little pie chart, little graph like we used to do when we had jobs, and go, right, every win we mark it on there. And then we'll get to last season's win total and then the target. I'd just be aiming for that. I'd almost say to them, if you could do this, it's impossible because people have got phones. I say, don't look at the league table. Don't look at goal difference. Don't look at any of that. I just want to look want us to look at the win level. Maybe wins and goals scored. Have a target for goals scored and a target for wins. And I think if we just focused on that, I think by the time we get halfway, 3/4 of the way through the season, if we then said none of us had looked at the table, I think we'd find ourselves in a really strong position. So yeah, I think we'll do a lot better next year. I'm excited with how we're playing. We still like to see a goalkeeper. We still like to see a midfielder come in, but I'm really happy with the way we're sort of moving at the minute. So yeah, thank you for that super chat, bro. I appreciate that a lot. This is Terry. Yes, Terry, thoughts on your top 10 this season. Who are our biggest rivals? Fantastic work, mates. You're a top guy. Thank you, Jack. I don't know about the top 10 yet. My top 4 is already set, same as last year. I then look at it and think, you look at the remaining 6 places. Newcastle, Villa, Brighton. Who else we got? Spurs, Man United. 1 place left. Right now, I'm saying Bournemouth. But there'll be a lot of clubs saying, well, we've got a chance in that. You know, there'll be a lot of other chances. You know, Brentford are a team that will say they should be there, but I don't know if they will be. Everton in the new stadium, how's that going to go down this year? But yeah, that would kind of be my top 10. Right now, off the top of my head, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, Bournemouth, Spurs, United, and I said someone else, Brighton. Maybe not in that particular order. That would be my top 10 if I was to point it out there. Hey, Terry, any news on Eze as Crystal Palace fan? We're due 20% of the sale. Absolutely brilliant. We're gonna jump into that story right now for you, actually, before we take your calls. It's more of a story, it's more of a take I've got. Let's take a little look at a post that was put out about a few hours ago about this deal. Now, this was an interesting one to me. Ben Jacobs put an update out saying that Arsenal are not worried about the release clause expiring after holding talks with Palace. Arsenal plan has always been to bid below the clause, blah, 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 blah. This Palace fan, who I respect, I've got no issue, says, maybe I'm missing something here, but why do Arsenal think we're going to accept less than the release clause that's been sat there with less time to replace him? European football and a manager who has spoken about wanting more bodies in the squad. It's just because it's Arsenal and they're a big club. Yeah. I mean, without being rude, that's kind of it. That's sort of it. The buyout clause expiring doesn't really change too much. Palace were always open to, so it's not even it's partly because they're a big club and they know the player wants to join, and there just is a likelihood the player pushes for the move towards the end, nearer towards the end of the window. You know, let's not. I know he loves Palace, but let's not sit there and pretend that. And people said this about Isak, he won't push for a move, and he has done. But I think more importantly than that, Palace have always been open to installments on this deal. The reason why this deal was slowed down is because Palace want £30 million up front. That's been the snag. I keep seeing Arsenal and Palace fans go, just pay the release clause, just pay the release clause, just pay the release clause. Now, Arsenal want to get it a little bit lower than the release clause, which is fair, because everybody always wants to get a player for lower than the club value them. Even with Madueke, I don't think they should have bought him. But the initial price that Chelsea wanted was around 55 million base. They got it down by 7 million. So they're right to do that. The reason this deal hasn't accelerated has nothing to do with the total amount being offered. Arsenal Football Club are not going to pay. Well, they're going to try their best not to pay £30 million up front. We've just gone through this with the Newcastle situation. That's the rarity in this circumstance, to pay out a massive lump sum up front. It doesn't really happen. So I think that is something that football fans have to be very aware of, in my humble opinion, very aware of, that the initial fee up front is what's slowing it down. So when I look at the Eze news, I think it's all to do with that. And if Arsenal can get them down to 15 million, 20 million up front, I think you'll see this deal accelerate pretty quickly. At the same time, this suits Arsenal because Arsenal are trying to get players out of the door. So this deal's only being slowed down because of the situation with the buyout clause. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it accelerate in the next few weeks. Will he be in before the start of the season? That I'm unsure of, because there's no updates on that. It's the same with the Xavi situation with Chelsea and Leipzig. It's just the fee and the add-ons plus the structure. And it's often the structure and not the actual fee that slow these deals down. So, and maybe what will happen is maybe if Arsenal do agree to the 30 million up front, it will be with the valuation being decreased. So at the moment, they're saying, oh, no, we want 68 million and 30 up front. Maybe this deal ends up being 30 million up front, but only 58 million in total, with the remaining 28 million pounds spread over a 3 to 4 year period, which Arsenal might then be more comfortable with, especially if they can sell a few players that bring them in a profit, and there's a cash profit in that as well. So I think a lot of this is, I keep hearing people say that they don't care about the money, they don't care about the finances, just get things done. The problem is if you don't take time to learn, educate yourself, and understand why deals take time, you're just going to be angry always. And I always find in life, I'll give you an example. I know some of you hate my banking examples, but it's from my life, and I've got to give it to you. How many of you have been declined for a loan, or your interest rate's too high and you're angry? And when I worked in the bank, we went through this process where we were a little bit younger. I was in my younger days in the bank, and I said, look, what's really hard? And they said, what things are difficult with customers? So it's really hard when a customer says, why is my interest rate 19%, but my brother got a loan from here and it was 7%? I don't know how to answer the question because there was no education on it. I said, when we decline somebody and they ask for an explanation as to why they've been declined, there's no information on it. And the bank had this view at the time where it was like, well, that's just internal information. We're not going to tell customers that. But then customers are confused. And I said, I don't even think they was annoyed about the interest rate or not getting the loan. They're annoyed because they don't understand. So after deliberation and things went up to senior people and came back, eventually they started educating us on why these things were. So what they started doing on the system is they would break down what was wrong with the credit report on somebody, and so we could give them specific information so they could go out and start improving that part of their credit score. So customers were getting declined, but they were still leaving somewhat happy because they had a path they could follow. On the interest rate, I didn't know this at the time. I'm going to boil this down to basics, the way we used to explain it to customers. Essentially, the worse your credit score is, the more of a risk you are to a bank. So you would borrow money from different pots. Each pot, from low risk to high risk, each pot is insured. So the bank essentially takes the savings of its customers, borrows that amount of money from another bank normally. So you've got £1 billion of, let's just make it slower amount, £1 million of lending for the low risk and £1 million of lending for the high risk. But they're taking that money essentially from all the balances of the rest of us. So they can't spend our money and lose it. They have to insure it in case that money doesn't come back. The insurance companies charge a higher premium on the high risk versus the low risk. It was essentially but it was more complicated than that, but it was the basics of it. When we started telling customers this and we showed them their credit score, why it was a little bit lower, how they could improve it, what we started seeing was a much better response to, okay, well, that makes sense. I can work on that in future. I'll get it better. Or I'm not going to take the loan now, but I can improve on that and come back. Transparency helps. Transparency always helps calm people down. The issue I have with football fans is that we get given the transparency. We're told why things take time. And our reaction is, don't fucking care, just get it done. And I just sit there and think, you have to be low IQ or faking it. You're either low IQ or you're faking it. It can't be, I understand it fully, it makes complete sense, but I'm still angry. I don't get that. And the irony is, I keep hearing people go, but I want to act like Liverpool. But then they moan when their club does what Liverpool does. Make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So yeah, for me, the whole thing is really, really crazy. Really, really crazy indeed. It truly is. What are you guys saying here? Do you think we've got Man United got a chance with Donnarumma? Absolutely none. Absolutely no chance whatsoever. I think we're being since I got excited when the news came out. Now I look back at it. Yeah, we're just being used. We're just being used 110%. We're just being used by PSG or by the player. He's going to get a bigger deal. That's going to be it. There's no more to say about it than that. That's it. No more to say about it than that. 110%. There's no more to say about it. We're just being used. 110% facts. We're being used on that deal now. If we get it, great. I'll eat my hat. I'll be well happy. I'll be sitting here chomping into my hat, smiling. We've got one of the best goalies in the world, but it isn't going to happen. Terry, do you think Cunha and Mbeumo will play versus Everton? Yes, I do. A couple of days' time, I think that will happen. Isak can buy out the last 3 years of his contract with Newcastle to join Liverpool. So Newcastle better hurry up and take an offer when they get it. Yes, Terry. Yeah. Listen, it can do that. I mean, players can buy out their contracts at any point theoretically if they've got the money to do it. It's cheaper and easier in the last 3 years. There's always ways forward. There's always a way forward. They're gonna do a deal. He's gonna be sold. It's just gonna happen. I think we all have to just get into our minds that will happen and that will get over the line. Right, we're going to jump into your calls this morning. If you haven't hit the like button yet, people, get that done right now, please. Get the like button hit. Get yourself subscribing. If you want to phone in, the link is in our live chat for you guys to do so. So a massive shout out to all of you. Also for the live section bit, I keep forgetting to do this. So I'm actually going to put this to my members and to my moderators. You've got to start reminding me, just typing in members only on these phone-in shows, and we're going to do this on match reaction shows this season when we get into the call-in part, is we go members only in the chat as well. That is one of the privileges our members get. If you want to become a member, the link is in our description. That you can sign up to do that as well, or you can just continue. Most of you just sit there and listen anyway, right? Most of you don't leave comments, so it's entirely up to you. So that's now switched on as well. First caller of the day is going to be Tim. Tim, let me put my earphones on though. If I don't have the earphones on, I'm not going to be able to hear. And that's ear with a H. I'm not going to be able to hear what Tim Brown. Sounds like a very posh name. I don't mean that disrespectfully. Just does to me. He doesn't look that posh though. He might be. He's got long hair, so we'll see. Tim, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm right. Thanks. I don't feel like I'm posh.
Posher than me, but probably not posh. Yeah, it's one of them ones. It's, you were brought up. I was dragged up. It's one of them ones, mate. But listen, welcome to the show, Tim. I can see you're a gooner. What do you want to say, mate?
Well, I'm actually not here to talk about Arsenal. I'm here, I am to talk about strikers.
Let's do it.
So, we've been talking a lot about Sesko. I think the best move for him is to go to Newcastle. And if Man United do get him, then they need to get rid of Rasmus. And that's not to say that I think Rasmus is bad. I think Rasmus is good when he gets supply. But they don't need two strikers of a similar age.
Question for you.
Yep.
Why do you think Sesko is better suited to Newcastle? What's your rationale there, Tim?
I know you're a Man United fan, so I don't want to offend you, but I just think they're a better club at the moment.
You just think you'll get better development there. He'll be nurtured better and improve more.
I mean, what's happened to Rasmus for the past 2 years?
No, I hear you.
How much did they spend on him? 70 million?
About that, yeah.
And haven't given him the supply he needs from midfield or down the wings to get him the chances he needs to see. So
I agree with that. My only pushback on it, and there's nothing you said that's incorrect. We did a terrible job developing him. He was bought by a different board, by different key decision makers, by a different manager in a very different system. I'm looking at what's happened since Ineos have come in. Now, we've gone backwards in the league. There is no denying that. But when I think about young players that we've bought, I look at Heaven, who's done well. I look at Lenny Yoro, who I do think has developed, who I do think is becoming a more competent and comfortable defender for us. I think he's slowly realizing his talent. I've been watching him in pre-season and I watched him towards the end of last season, and I just look at him and go, he's already a different player to when he arrived. So I'm hopeful that we're beyond those days where we killed everybody that came in and signed for us and there was no progression, there was no development. But if I'm Newcastle and I'm talking to Sesko, I am selling him what you did. I absolutely agree. I'd be showing him, I'd just be sitting there showing him pictures of Pogba and Rasmus and all these players that have joined United and whose careers went backward. I would 100% do that if I was at Newcastle to try and convince him. 100%.
Yeah, you just make a highlight clip of all of those times where Rasmus makes a run and doesn't get a ball. And then it gets to the 70-minute plus and he's just not making the runs anymore because what's the point?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think you're absolutely right in terms of that should be Newcastle's ploy. Man United, on the other hand, should just be sitting there and saying, under new management, we signed these players last year. Look how well De Ligt, look how good Maswari, look how good Heaven did. You know, Heaven came in and most of us just thought he was a youth player we were buying. He's ended up being a player that Man United fans are desperate to see in the starting 11. Was desperate to see him play. Thank you to Arsenal, by the way, who helped.
Yeah, I wasn't really happy with how that happened, but I can understand his position, because he's looking there going, we've got two of the best centre backs in Europe in front of me. Where's my progression? Especially because Saliba's like in his early mid-20s.
Absolutely. And we also play the back three. So at Man United, you've got one extra chance of becoming a centre back now than you do at Arsenal, because we play with three on the pitch. Although you sometimes
and you've got aging centre backs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in the next what would be nice for United in the next 2 to 3 years is to see Lenny Yoro and Heaven reach their full potential. And then we're set for theoretically, you're set for a decade when it comes to centre backs in that regard. So if I was sitting down, if I'm Christian Vavel and I'm sitting in a room, I'm saying, look, yes, people can tell you the past was crap, but no one here buying you, no one here coaching you, no one here running the club was at the football club when these things happened. It's a brand new group of people. And that, I mean, the only other thing that's against us is the league position. At the same time, Cunha and Mbeumo were joined and both rejected Newcastle for us. So again, that's a sales tactic on our side there to go, well, we've got these two guys in. How do you think Sesko will do in the Premier League by and large, though?
I think given the right supply, he'll do really well. I mean, he didn't have a very good season last season, but Leipzig were awful. I only watched highlights of them in the league, but I did watch some of their Champions League games, and they just were bad. So it was a bit of a rough one for him. I was kind of hopeful that would mean that his value would drop and that we'd be able to get him, but they have their price set and don't appear to want to move on that. And I think eventually they'll find a club that is willing to pay them the whatever it is, 70 plus 20 million euros that they want for him. So.
Yeah, man, and it looks like Man United are willing to do that, but we will see in the coming days. Listen, mate, Tim, thanks for calling in. Make sure you phone in again, buddy.
I will do.
Speak soon. Top man, thank you. Rob is on with us next. What are you saying, Rob?
So, also an Arsenal fan, also going to talk about Man United, and a completely different opinion to the last guy. Okay. So, selfishly, I'd love Sesko to join Newcastle because I don't want United to get better. No person. I'm 44 years old. Nobody who grew up watching Manchester United dominate the league wants them to go back to that stage. Just selfishly, we all say, "Oh, we don't care about United," but deep down, we don't want that to come back. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it, right? Now, Sesko scored, 10, 11 more league goals than Rasmus last year in a very mid team that didn't create for him. When you replace players like Garnacho, Sancho, Mount, all of those people who would technically have been starters for Manchester United with Mbeumo and Cunha, and having a midfield that can create, he'll score more goals. He'll score 15, probably 20 goals. And if you add 15 more goals in you than last season, you get more points. That's just how it goes. And I don't want United to get those incremental raises, because that's how you make the gains. You only go up and you only get better by making marginal gains. And every player you've bought makes gains. You're not buying players to replace. You're buying players to increase your skill, increase your points, increase your goals, XG, everything. So if you're Sesko and you look at, if I'm Sesko and I'm looking at United and Newcastle, one team does well one season, drops out another season, might do well one season, drop out another season in Newcastle. And you look at one team in United who are planning to build a new stadium, who are buying players who far exceed what they've got, who have an incredible legacy, who have money. You're going to win more. You're going to win more at Manchester United. Even if they finish 9th, they can still pick up trophies. We've seen it. Even when you're finishing 16th, you're in finals. So for me, it's a no-brainer for Sesko, but I desperately don't want him to go there because I think if you look at Rasmus's first game against Arsenal, if you look at that player in that game, and then you was to say, in 2 seasons, you won't recognise that player, people wouldn't believe you. When he came on against Arsenal, when he had the long hair, he looked like a baby Hoyland. He was bullying Gabriel. He was running. He was chasing everything. That's a totally different guy to the Rasmus we see now. So there is a player in there, but history is littered with players who made the wrong move at the wrong time and didn't work out and went somewhere else. And you saw the potential they had. That's what Rasmus needs to do. So you get Sesko in, you move Rasmus on, you give maybe Obi a good loan move, and he can come back next year. I think, unfortunately, the future's rosy for United, and I hate it. I hate it beyond measure.
Look, I hope you're right. Obviously, as a United fan, I still tread with a little bit of trepidation because we've had some false dawns before. But I agree with what you said wholeheartedly around the gains. The one thing that Cunha's and Sesko's and Mbeumo's give us is they're all capable of scoring 4 or 5 league goals each a year from nothing. Long range efforts, curlers, just having a pop shot and putting it in the pulling it into the top corner. Rasmus can't do that. Rasmus, he'll get you those tap-ins, he'll get you those headers. He scored a couple of goals where he's dropped a shoulder on the edge of the box and put it in the bottom corner, but he doesn't score enough like it. And I even think at his best, you might get 1 or 2 a year. Where those boys, I think, could add 15 goals to this team from nothing. And it's those moments where and you know this because Saka's done it for you on a regular occurrence. Liverpool fans have seen this for years from Mo Salah and Mane, where you're in a tight game, it's difficult. Players on the edge of the box, drops a shoulder, curls it into the far top corner, and you're leading. Goals change games. And as much as that is a cliched comment now in football, there's so much truth to it. You know, you only have to watch the England's ladies, the Lionesses versus Spain. We weren't in the game, and we scored from a header, and we were in the game. It changed, gave us an adrenaline boost. It made the Spanish a little more fearful of us. It changed things. And the idea that bringing in players that score goals isn't going to help us. I just find I've seen a lot of people say that, well, they haven't addressed this issue and that issue. Yeah, you're right. And those issues need to be addressed as well to make us an elite team. But to go from a team that could only win 7 or 8 games, 10, whatever it was we won last year, you could potentially double that just by adding good quality goal scorers. And I don't think that's rocket science. I always thought that was basic football knowledge, and it seems like it's not at the moment.
The other thing is as well, I think it will help Bruno's game because last season, I probably don't watch as many United games as you do, but they're always on the TV because they always are because they're Man United. But so when you watch the games, Bruno is trying to do so much in every game that by the end of the game, everything had to go through him because he was the only one making anything happen. So I think it will help his game, the fact that he won't have to run the entire game himself. He can pass the ball to somebody and go, right, I trust that guy. Because football is about trusting other players' abilities. And, when you've played the ball to Rasmus that many times and he can't trap a ball, you're going to stop playing the ball to him. You just will. Subconsciously, you're like, well, I'll spray it out there, I'll put it out there. If he's got players that he knows, he'll make that run. He'll make that pass. I think it will just improve everybody else on the pitch, especially Bruno, because I saw it at Arsenal in the last season of Henry, he looked exasperated on the pitch, looking around, thinking, I used to be playing with this caliber of player. I'm now playing with this caliber of player. And it's the same thing that happened with Van Persie. Van Persie, I think he either did a big story or something where it was like he looked around the dressing room and he thought, this team isn't the team it used to be. And the players think about that, especially players like Bruno. And I think it will massively improve the midfield game.
I agree. I think it will help him a lot. I still would like an athletic midfielder to come in, but overall, I'm pretty chuffed with the sort of business that we're looking at and the business that we are doing personally. So yeah, very, very happy with that. Indeed. Robert, make sure you call in again, mate. Great call. And we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks, Leo.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Seb is coming on with us next. What are you saying, Seb? Let everyone know you support, bruv.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay, sweet. I'm an Arsenal fan as well, so that's 3 in a row. But I'm not going to talk about Arsenal. I was going to touch on United, but literally everybody has touched on United, so I'm going to talk about Liverpool. I think I'm going to call it a rhetoric just because anytime anyone else voices their opinions about Liverpool, it's shot down. I don't think it's as straightforward with Liverpool as everyone's saying. I don't think even if they get Isak in, it's a lot of people are just going, oh, they've won the league now. Just give it. To me, it's a bit pathetic, really. But I think, yes, they're going to be very top heavy. But when you do look over the squad at Liverpool, there are holes there, the same with everybody else. There's places to exploit. For example, like last summer, that everyone was screaming Liverpool needed a CDM. Obviously, Gravenberch's steps has been better, but I don't think you can fully rely on Gravenberch again, I think there still needs to be cover there, because if he gets injured, you're dropping down to Endo and he's not at the same standard at all. The midfield shape's going to be completely different because, let's be honest, Wirtz coming in is a replacement for Trent. He's not necessarily a midfield replacement for Szoboszlai. So Szoboszlai did bring in that intensity in the midfield, the running, along with McAllister. So if you are dropping Szoboszlai, there is a bit missing there, which I don't think they have another midfield profile to suit that. I think Trent is going to be a big miss. Liverpool fans are obviously very salty with him leaving, but they're going to miss him. He's one of the best right-backs in the world. There's a reason why Real Madrid wanted him. Defensively, it isn't as bad, even if you look at the underlying stats that people say. When he's not in the Liverpool squad last year, they were a lot worse when he went through that bad patch, the small bad patch they had. Defensively, no cover whatsoever. They brought in, so far, nobody. Obviously, they want Guehi, but financially, it looks like a bit of an issue. So Van Dijk's coming into 34. Yeah, he hasn't had injury problems before. Konate looks a bit unsettled. There's no cover at the back there whatsoever. So, because they've sold the only player they had there. Obviously, they've got Gomez there, but he's injury prone as well. Even if you look at the structure of that team, the right back, left back is also changing. You're going to have to change structure because the right back, Frimpong, is not a right back, really. He's a right wing back. So is it going to be Bradley? But even Bradley is a completely different profile to what they had before. Kirkes is good. He's had one good season in the Premier League. We'll see how he steps up. But I think there will be I think this is more of a transitional season for Liverpool than last year, really, because of the amount of change they're having. When was the last time we saw a Premier League team who have just won a league have this much change all in one go? There's going to be some growing pains because every single squad have this mass change in one go. I still think they're going to be very good. They're still going to be in a title race, obviously. But when people are saying they're going to get 95 plus points and that no one's touching them, I think is completely wrong, just purely on the basis of there is going to be growing pains. And when Man City were in their prime, not one person during pre-season would go, the league's over, Man City's won it, don't bother. It's just this Liverpool team specifically, everyone's now getting really excited. There were flaws the season before. The squad last season, they didn't, especially, it'll be interesting to see in the run-in this year because of how bad everybody else was last year. There was no pressure on Liverpool coming into that running whatsoever. The league was over by January, so it would be interesting to see how far that Liverpool team can progress. I think it's going to be a very exciting title race. I think it's going to be the complete opposite to what everyone else is saying. Even when you look at how good Chelsea are strengthening across their pitch, they got defensive instability as well there. But the fact that Liverpool, I think everyone's focusing on how good they are going forward, but they're not looking at the other areas. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but I think the fact that they're saying it's going to be over, I think is completely wrong, especially when you look at how good Arsenal have strengthened as well. But Liverpool do have those holes. I think they will fix some of it. I think they will bring in a centre-back, but the fact that everyone's going, it's over, I think is completely over the top, really, especially when you listen to like Straight Facts where you got Hassam and Dot. They're just basically saying it's over. It's just like, it's completely incorrect. I think a lot of it from a lot of people, especially on Twitter and TikTok, where I upload videos on TikTok, I think a lot of it is just clickbait at this point. Everyone knows there's going to be a title race. Everyone knows Arsenal, Man City are going to be there. They're just scaremongering, I think, a bit at the moment.
Yeah, I think, do you know what it is for me? Also, check the private chat for me if you could, please.
Okay.
On there. I look at it as, I see them as the clear favourites, and I think I've had a reaction where I've gone, it's done, man. This is crazy, and that's me as a United fan panicking. But I do agree with you. There is going to be a title race. I just don't think that. Yesterday was a weird one because if you guys would have scored a couple of those early chances and you'd have won the game, the reaction would have been different. But there's suddenly this sort of view that Arsenal were done, they're finished because they lost a pre-season game to Spurs. Yeah. I think it's such a dramatic, it's over the top. Now, people might end up being right. So they may end up, oh, look, they were crap. I don't think yesterday is the evidence of that. I think people are guessing, mate. I think they're guessing.
The frustrating thing about the pre-season games is they didn't watch the other ones. Against AC Milan, we were very good. Against Newcastle, we were very good. It's a pre-season fixture. And I think, especially I watched Top 4 show yesterday, and they were talking about, especially Staffield's, how poor we were going forward, lacking shots. We've created multiple chances. We had over 15 shots at goal. The creation there was fine. It was just, it's a pre-season game. I think Tottenham were far more up for it. than we were. The way they were playing, I think Frank saw that as an opportunity to go, I'm here now. This is how we're going to be. We're not going to be a pushover this season. So I think Tottenham have used this fixture, which I think is right for them. But I think Arsenal looked rusty. Obviously, there was a lot of changes. The only thing I was particularly disappointed with yesterday, I paid to watch the game, and then we making substitutions quite late in the game. Like the first substitutions came at the 60th minute. Tottenham made a lot of changes. And then obviously we bring in a big new striker and he only gets 10 minutes, which was a bit disappointing. But if you're going to read into pre-seasons, you've got to take all of them into account. You can't just pick one and go off of that. I don't think we're anywhere near as poor as everyone said. And let's be honest, Tottenham's goal wouldn't have counted in the Prem. There was a foul in play. It wouldn't have counted anyway. Who cares? But it's just, yeah, especially because Arsenal's getting so much abuse for the pre-season game yesterday, but then I'm barely hearing anything about Liverpool's pre-season games or Man City's pre-season games. We've all lost games during pre-season, but I think it's just fun for people to get on Arsenal because the fans get very rattled. As an Arsenal fan myself, I get very annoyed with a lot of Arsenal fans. They don't give us a very good reputation as it is. So I think they do get rattled. It's very easy to rattle people.
Yeah. There's certainly an element of I don't like some Arsenal fans, so I'm going to shit on Arsenal.
Yeah.
Don always reveals it. You mentioned Don, so I'll bring Don up. Don has openly said, and you've seen the venom in his voice, he hates Man United. So what that tells me, and it's fine because he doesn't have to be nice to Man United. That tells me that when you get the opportunity to assess my team, more often than not, you're assessing it through a lens of hate. You're assessing it through. You're not seeing the alternative outcomes because you are pushing the narrative for what you want to happen, and that's fine. Like that, these things are genuinely fine. It's okay for that to be the case.
It's just fan banter most of the time, anyway. Yeah. But it's just like some people go over the top of it. But I think it's a discussion point. But yeah.
I certainly agree. Look, I want to thank Seb for calling in the show. I want to thank all of our other callers. I'm live again today, 2 p.m. on the United Stand, 4:30 for Straight Facts with Don, Dan, and Staffy, plus 6:30 tonight live with Ben Jacobs as well. So a really, really busy day here content-wise. Listen, everyone, if you haven't done so yet, hit the like button before you leave. Make sure you are subscribing. But until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. This is going to redirect you to Don Hassan's channel. So go check out Don Hassan. Go support my brother now. And we will see you all again very, very soon. Peace.
Cheers. Bye-bye.